Good Tuesday evening, everybody. Meteorologist Casey Cloud here in the Weather Center with the latest on Major Hurricane Delta, a Category 4 storm right now that is looking very serious as we're getting that image here, the latest one off the infrared satellite imagery. And it's just something that you don't want to see. You can actually kind of tell here that some of the cloud tops are just so significant that the color scale here is not even able to get the best view of them because we're just getting them there as I kind of point things out. We're probably right near that eye as you get the latest update there in from that. So again, just continuing to watch things with this system. It is right now not too far away even from a Category 5 storm. So we're going to be continuing to get the latest updates in on how this system does evolve. But the Yucatan Peninsula, I'll kind of move the map over a little bit as you kind of look there at the top left of your screen. That's where the Yucatan is. And then as we go ahead and put the icons on now, I'll preface this with saying that the icons here have this as a Cat 5 at some point now. That's not actually in the official forecast as our systems, I think, reading the numbers there a little bit differently than it should, but it could become a Cat 5 still. But in the official forecast, they have this getting as close to a Cat 5 as it can without actually achieving that. So we have to just continue to watch here, but just kind of watch that official track as this does move toward the Yucatan here. Cancun, Mexico, going to be impacted severely, it looks like, as well, that area. And then you see a weakening some here as we get toward the Gulf, but then some strengthening again. And then we'll just watch as we get up toward Louisiana here. We have some other things plotted right now. I'll take them off just because they're not really relevant for what we're talking about. But you see, as a tropical storm, this system would be as they get up toward parts of Mississippi there, not far there from the Mississippi Delta, in fact, as you see a stronger tropical storm even as we get closer toward Jackson. So still going to have some significant impacts here as we go across Louisiana. And I'll put on some more model information right now just to kind of add some more perspective here on what could happen. So right now, maybe a landfall in this area. This is still subject to change, don't get me wrong, but right now maybe between Cameron and Morgan City, and then going up toward Lafayette here, and then maybe impacting the Baton Rouge area pretty significantly, depending on the angle of this track and how close they are to the worst of this, as this storm does look to expand in size here as it does move off to the north, because right now it's a pretty small storm system, in fact. But I'll go ahead and put up our satellite again. We'll go back down there as we look toward Delta, and you'll be able to see what is happening with it. And again, pretty small in size right now. That wind field here pretty confined as we show you that. We're going to go ahead and measure these hurricane winds real quick, and from left to right only extending about 40 miles, and then the eye there is really small, and that can lead to intensification pretty quickly with this. This storm's intensified quicker than we've really ever seen in the Atlantic Basin with any other tropical cyclone in recorded history. I mean, we were at a tropical depression there late Sunday night, 35-mile-an-hour winds or so, and now we've seen the winds just shoot up to 145 miles an hour. I mean, you don't never see that with the winds. I know Wilma's an interesting comparison, somewhat similar area here as we kind of look back in history. 15 years ago, the pressure actually dropped quite a bit lower with that one though, because it was a little bit bigger in size there, and that did end up having a big impact on South Florida eventually. I know there was some weakening as it moved closer toward that area, an interesting path, an uncertain path, but right now this looks a little more certain. But we have to watch toward Lafayette, Baton Rouge, New Orleans as well, because the storm surge could be a big issue here, as this storm will still have a lot of that with it here, even if it weakens some in terms of those overall winds. I mean, we've seen storms, Katrina, I mean, not comparing this to Katrina in terms of the overall impacts. We're not sure on what's going to happen in the track, maybe off toward the west here, and Katrina was in a different area, but my point being, it was a Cat 3 at landfall after being so strong, so just able to kind of get that storm surge going, unfortunately. And we'll just have to watch, see how this is, because this is something you don't normally see, a storm just going from not much here to something so strong that we had been kind of indicating here as we were looking back in toward the hurricane season, as we get back in toward the timeline. Last couple weeks have been talking about something trying to evolve here, and pretty quick maybe, and that's exactly what has happened. Luckily right now, Florida doesn't look to be too much in the crosshairs, which is great news here for the Sunshine State, that we do have to watch toward the Big Bend and toward the Panhandle there as we're looking off toward the west for maybe some impacts here. Again, just looking at those images, they're just pretty scary, to be honest, how this has evolved so quickly. Going to be devastating for the Cancun, Mexico area, the Yucatan Peninsula, the northeastern part there. So I'll go ahead and take off some other information right now. We'll go ahead and put on some of our wind information here in a moment. But right now in Cancun, they're 81 degrees. The pressure's still over 1,000 millibars. Again, this is pretty compact, but we look at some of our wind tools here. The winds are not even that strong there. Cozumel, looks like that area here, looks like we're seeing winds there only 10 knots. So again, this is compact. We're going to see the conditions deteriorate later tonight, and then as we get in toward your Wednesday morning, that's when we're going to have some big time problems here. A historic storm for these folks here potentially. So we have to just keep them in our thoughts and prayers, and then we have to watch here as they kind of move the map up toward the U.S. Again, it's going to weaken some probably after we kind of see the storm interact with land, maybe strengthen again, and then weaken some again as it gets into less favorable conditions. And some of our models have it as a Cat 1 here, not too long after landfall even. So that would be some good news, maybe a Cat 2 type landfall. If that were to be the case, then we have it as a Cat 3 here on the official forecast. Again, we're going to continue to watch the size of this, as this will kind of have an impact on the strength as well. A stronger storm here, we're talking maybe one here that's a little more compact, but as it kind of is a little bit larger as we get in time, we could still have some big time issues, even if the winds are a little bit less with it. So let's go ahead and move on along here in the timeline. We'll go ahead and go to our local Doppler radar real quick. I know we have viewers in North Florida, South Georgia, and you want to know what's happening right now. I know we're in alert mode with this storm that's going to be pretty serious out toward the west. But as we look here toward our region right now, you do see some shower activity as we look toward west of I-75 there in Alachua County. You see here High Springs area, around Clark as well, east of the city of Alachua. You see as we get the street level mapping right now, County Road 2054 getting into some heavy shower activity right now. So just be cognizant of that. Maybe some ponding the water on the roadways. And I know as we kind of look off toward the east, we had some raininess around earlier today, and you can kind of see that as we go to our storm total rainfall amounts. We even had some flooding here, minor flooding as we get toward Duval, Nassau, St. Johns counties. So just kind of giving you that update there. Again, just trying to kind of give you the overall view on things. I am going to pull up another tool that we have here in just a second. I think this will be kind of helpful here as we look off toward the west. You see some showers toward Tallahassee as well. But let's go ahead now, and we're going to give you another perspective, a different color scale here, a different scheme of things that you can kind of see exactly what is happening here with the moisture around us. Again, we have the strongest activity right now as we get toward areas there near Interstate 75. So you can see off toward Trenton there as well, off toward Western Gilchrist County, getting into some of this here too, and toward areas there not far from Horseshoe Beach and Cedar Key. So we'll look here off toward Tallahassee real quick. I'll switch radars for this. And you see some pretty heavy shower activity here south of Woodville, but nothing extreme. And that's the good news, not expecting any severe weather. And again, we'll continue to watch things though here with our radar scope computer on this Tuesday evening, just trying to give you that latest information here as we continue to watch out for things here across our viewing area. So let's go ahead now. We'll pop up some other tools that we have. We have some cameras in store for you right now. We'll start with the baseball grounds and toward Jacksonville, and you do see some dark skies here to an extent as the sun's starting to go down here, and we're just continuing to watch. I know some marine warnings down toward the Tampa Bay area, watching some of that activity down there. But as you see here, you see overall this grand scheme of things, pretty nice overall as we're getting toward the region of Duval County compared to what we saw earlier with that shower activity around. At least you're getting a glimpse of some of that clearing in the picture. We'll have those rain chances still up though as we're looking ahead, but nothing like what we're going to see off toward the west here with the moisture really coming into play with our major Hurricane Delta. Again, that storm so serious there. As we look toward the UF weather stem camera right now, we'll go down 301 toward Gainesville right now, and you do see some of that sun there reflecting off the clouds. You see the football stadium there and a basketball arena as well. And then we'll take you to Tallahassee now, where I know we're just continuing to watch things out that way. You see the darker skies there as we're looking toward the stadium. I know so many things have been going on out there lately. I know the Noles did get the win. As we look back out toward your Saturday over Jacksonville State, looks like might have figured things out a little bit with the quarterback position. So hopefully we can at least least be competitive as we're looking ahead here against some really tough opponents later in the season. I know a rebuilding year for sure, but just trying to be more competitive here in some of these contests against tough teams like Notre Dame. I mean, maybe we can get an upset or two, but we'll be watching for that. We'll be watching, I know, with the coronavirus around, seeing Coach Bobby Bowden getting the coronavirus, it looks like, based on media reports, and same with President John Thrasher as well. He announced that earlier. He and his wife there testing positive. So everybody in our thoughts and prayers that's going through this right now, the coronavirus situation that still evolves. I mean, we're talking in March really when things got going, and now in October, and unfortunately we're just going to have to continue to watch that as things are pretty dangerous still in some regards. So make sure you take those necessary precautions. As we go ahead and move away from weather stem right now, we'll show you another look here at the current Doppler radar imagery. Again, we're gonna just watch for that. We'll make sure we give you the latest heads up on things here as necessary, as I know we're just gonna want to talk more about the tropics right now with our storm system. Let me check with the Hurricane Center here to see if we have anything new that we need to talk about right now, because they've been sending out some updates here as needed. Again, just gonna be life-threatening storm surge and extreme winds as we're getting toward the northeast coast of the Yucatan Peninsula here later on tonight into early tomorrow. So going to be really serious for those folks. We'll be watching some of our different vantage points here in the Weather Center. I know just a situation that is definitely one to watch here. We'll now go ahead and move to our graphics, give you that cone perspective on our storm system on major hurricane Delta. Again, it was just a 35-mile-per-hour tropical depression Sunday night at 11, and then at 5 p.m. today, now 145-mile-per-hour Cat 4. It became a Cat 4 late this morning, and I mean, that is just incredible rapid intensification like you've really not seen before in terms of those overall winds. I mean, the system just getting that together. You notice we didn't really see an eye there on the infrared because it's so small and compact. There is an eye, but it's really small, as I've referenced, and that should allow this here to be able to try to intensify a little bit more, though we've seen some different things here in just the last little bit that might preclude that from happening. But as we look ahead in the timeline, some weakening will occur as it does move over to Yucatan, then getting in the Gulf of Mexico. We'll be watching the strength kind of fluctuate, and then maybe about 125-mile-per-hour Cat 3 moving toward Louisiana. Some weakening is closer to the coast right now is expected, but still could be a Cat 3 at landfall, maybe 115 miles per hour, give or take. Still speculating here at this point, but we're going to continue to watch for areas here in Louisiana. We're seeing the cone of concern extent from about Beaumont to New Orleans right now, and even up toward Gulfport. If you extrapolate that off there, as we're getting maybe after a landfall or something like that. So just got to be watching if you're in that cone of concern or even right outside of it. As you kind of see this curve back a little, I'm going to point this out here real quick. We're watching this kind of curve back a little as we get in toward parts of Alabama into parts of Georgia here to some extent with that cone to the track. Could be up more toward Tennessee there as we see with the overall scenario, but some of it spreading out could bring some more moisture our way. We'll watch for that potential, maybe an isolated tornado in the western areas. More talking about the Big Bend, southwest Georgia. Not really talking about north central Florida, northeast Florida, or southeast Georgia right now, but we'll watch again the pressure here, 956 millibars with that latest update, and movement west-northwest at 17. You see it trying to approach Cat 5 strength here as we're getting close toward that coast there with the Yucatan. And then right now, though, a catastrophic storm regardless with those winds in that Cat 4 range. A pretty small area, but still going to be serious. And then as we're looking ahead in toward the timeline here, this major hurricane, you see, got to wrap up those preparations if you're in that cone of concern that I said. You know, this kind of runs it out some, but if you're in that cone of concern, kind of extrapolate that off from what we showed you, and if you're in that area on this map, you need to be ready pretty much by early Friday morning, or even by the time you go to bed Thursday night, as this is going to ramp up here pretty quickly. Just got to be really monitoring this. This is a pretty quick mover, and that will allow for the rainfall amounts not to be as significant. Maybe as what we saw at Sally, maybe only up to about 12 inches or so in those isolated spots, but we'll continue to watch this. We're continuing to watch some of our different tools right now. We're going to go back to radar scope here, in fact, as we kind of look at some more things across our region. But again, you also see the fetch of moisture here as we're looking off toward the east. You see a lot less rain toward our area. We're talking about a half inch, maybe upwards of an inch, give or take, depending on where you're at in the next 7 days, while you have the moisture stream in Louisiana affecting areas there around Lafayette, maybe even to Lake Charles, hit so hard by our storm Laura there. And then as we get to Fort Jackson, into ward areas around Columbus, Mississippi too. So we'll watch, and you see I'm just looking off toward the east here. I know there's even some mandatory evacuations already in play there. So just have to kind of pay attention on what is happening. I'm talking about some of that moisture down towards South Florida. We are going to show you some of that right now. So I'm going to go ahead and kind of pop that up here. I just thought we'd kind of bring this on the screen here on your Tuesday as we are getting some pretty nasty sour thunderstorm activity down that way. You see around Cape Coral there, getting in towards some of this. You can see some of that lightning popping on the map, not really related toward our tropical system, but we've just kind of seen moisture around. We saw gamma fall apart, and we'll talk about that here in a second. But just kind of seeing that moisture around here, and we've seen a lot of moisture there in the picture off toward the east and toward the east central and really southeast Florida here as we kind of looked ahead. So just something to continue to make sure we don't see in terms of any more rainfall adding on to that antecedent rainfall. And you kind of look toward that area and you see some, but not horrible amounts right now. Just continue to watch out for any changes in the forecast as we look here off toward our storm names. You see all of them crossed off here, but we do have to just continue to monitor things. We've crossed Gamma off now too, but Delta is the one to watch. It definitely has that potential to even be retired here based on the catastrophic impacts it could bring. And just comparing it to some of the other storms this year, I know right now we're thinking maybe a Cat 3, something like that at landfall. It's still subject to change. So I just kind of put on a graphic as a placeholder right now for where it'll be as we're looking at the hurricanes that have made landfall in the U.S. this year. Of course, Laura, in terms of the wind impact, the greatest 150-mile-per-hour max sustained. Lake Charles impacted the greatest there. We saw Beaumont some too, but Lake Charles really impacted hard. You saw Sally there below what we could see right now with Delta, it looks like, and what to watch for Hannah and Isaias. But you can't just, you got to focus more on other impacts in the wind too with this. You can't just focus on that impact that you're going to see here with that wind. You got to watch for that rain potential, the storm surge here as well. That storm surge could be significant because they're in a favored area as we get off towards southeast Louisiana. And in fact, here, just Weather Service here and Hurricane Center talking about some of this different information as they've been looking ahead here to what could happen as we get toward tomorrow. And they're saying maybe hurricane and storm surge watches could be required, probably will be required as we get toward Louisiana. So we just have to be wanting you to know what to do there, northern Gulf Coast, so maybe even off toward the east a little bit, off toward the west, depending on how the models continue to refine things. I know some models going a little more west toward Lake Charles, but we have to watch toward the east because sometimes you get the worst of the impacts there as we get even a little bit further off toward the east, and if the system does expand in size, something to watch. Now, as you get toward that plan and forecast, because we're kind of focusing on the tropics, I didn't really update this here today, but you see those rain chances staying pretty high here in the timeline overall, with those temperatures pretty warm, relatively above average for this time of year, it seems. And then as we get toward the Tallahassee, Valdosta area forecast, you see these temperatures here pretty high as well. Those rain chances a little higher as we continue to watch Delta. We continue to look here at some of our different tools here in the Weather Center. We'll pop up our computer one last time for the rainfall that's occurring right now, because I know some of you have an interest in that. As I just wanted to give you that look at the forecast here. If you didn't see that yesterday, just give you one more update there, even though we're not really giving you anything new because we are focused on the tropics. You do see some of that moisture in play right now, though, on the north central Florida area we're talking about. I was going to say on the Florida First Coast, but you look here as we're getting further off toward the west, you're seeing that more in toward north central Florida right now. We're just going to continue to watch to see how this shower activity does fall. So that pretty much does it here on your Tuesday. We're going to be doing these simulcasts each day on the different platforms as we continue to watch this dangerous storm. Let me go ahead and get back down on the satellite here. We'll leave you with a look at Delta one more time as the Yucatan Peninsula, the Cancun area, going to be pretty significantly impacted. Now, one thing to watch, we do have to consider that this storm is pretty compact, so maybe Cancun will get spared the the absolute worst, but we'll find out in the coming hours here as we get toward that area. But a significant storm for those folks as we get down there. Doesn't matter if it's a Cat 4 or Cat 5, as we just kind of look at some of our different tools here. Again, I'm going to see if there's anything else I missed as we kind of get ready for tomorrow. Just be careful there as we're looking toward Florida Big Bend. Maybe some rip currents in play, just dangerous boating conditions as well. So that's something that is definitely a hazard with this here as we're seeing it off toward the west of our area. But again, just so crazy to see it strengthen like this, something we haven't seen since Wilma in 2005 at least, in terms of rapid strengthening. I just feel for these people down there, because I know we've been talking about storm systems evolving, but this track even sitting closer to them. I mean, 48 hours ago, most people down there probably had no idea something like this was going to evolve and move their way. So that's just a good reminder to always have your hurricane kit up to date, as things can change quickly here in the tropics. They can change quickly for us too. Right now, we're not too concerned with this system, especially off toward the first coast, north central, northeast Florida, southeast Georgia, but off toward the west, maybe some fringe impacts, as we've alluded to. That does it for now. I'll be back tomorrow on all of our different platforms with the latest on Major Hurricane Delta. Right now, a Category 4 storm with maximum sustained winds of about 145 miles an hour. Let's see if there's any new recon information. You see some plane data here coming in right now that looks like they kind of back things up a little. Yeah, they're coming in right now. In fact, here toward this area to do some more investigation. You kind of see them dipping there from the northwest toward the storm system as they try to get the latest readings. Of course, they're very important to try to be able to find out exactly what is happening in the storm, because we didn't realize how low the pressure had already fallen until they got out there yesterday, as things got pretty serious pretty quick there. And then we've just seen that rapid intensification continuing. We'll continue to watch it, and we'll see you tomorrow.